Greg Soulje, come on up, our colleague on This Week in Agribusiness, longtime friend, and a guy who takes weather forecasting very seriously. He's going to share a little insight. Give him a round of applause, please. Well, I said doom and gloom because you are already talking about a very challenging harvest. You were talking about it, 6 weeks ago, saying this could be a very wet harvest season. Now, if you get that wetness in one episode is one thing, but if it's
Right.
prolonged day after day after day where you can't get into a field,
You have issues.
that's so. What are we looking at? What are we thinking about?
El Nino driven. Yeah, it's there. And
What
what
does
does
that
that
mean?
mean? What does it mean? Well, textbook warming of the Pacific water,
What
Pacific
does that
waters.
mean?
That means a lot more energy in the atmosphere, capabilities of moisture. Okay, just was fortunate enough to be out in the Pacific a few days ago, and water temperatures record-setting in some spots off the Hawaiian Islands, dew points, cloud structure, the whole 9 yards. So you have a phenomenal energy source, the usual migration of cold out of the polar regions, and in methodologies and forecastings, we know that in some textbook years you anticipate this kind of particular setup in an El Nino year, but no two El Ninos are the same. And from our vantage point, and taking a look at other atmospheric indices, we come up with this wetter scenario, and we've seen it in our 30 years and our approach to forecasting, that we are in line for a wet fall harvest season, a wet, and let me emphasize the stormy nature to the pattern. AJ pointed out, and you talked about the stalk issues. These will be storm systems that will frequent the company, not just a generalized rain event. There'll be wind involved on the front side of the back side of these weather systems. And while it will be a benefit to the west with moisture, it may open up a whole other can of worms with severe issues and flooding and all that. But as we see it, a warming of the atmosphere, warming of the waters of the Pacific, deviates the jet stream pattern. And for us in this particular El Nino setup, it will mean wetter fall into early winter, a wetter winter season, and we'll probably de-emphasize the cold as we get deeper into winter. We talked about it that you may actually have your best harvest weather sometime in the early winter season around here, into December perhaps. And I know, I know what you're saying. I see it there. Not your classic textbook, the way weather will play out this year. Okay, so normally in an El Nino year, mild, drier pattern sets up across the Midwest, the Corn Belt. Don't see it this year. Don't see it in this particular El Nino.
We want to count on some windows of opportunity to get into the field.
They'll be there, not to our advantage though, especially as we get
There'll be some breaks.
There'll be some breaks. It's not like day after day, but a prolonged, wetter, stormier cycle that will encompass the Pacific Northwest, northern and central California, the Four Corners, as we laid out on the TV show, Denver, Des Moines, Dayton, and that a pattern that stays pretty much steadfast like that through November, before we tend to back off on the nature of the storms, ease up on the early season cold. That I think we do have those areas that are underdeveloped into parts of Michigan and Indiana and Ohio that might take it on the chin here as we approach the last 10 days of September.
The crop season will come to a halt there, you're saying?
Come to a halt, exactly, and more so into those interior Great Lakes regions and upper Ohio Valley portions of the
We're getting
Eastern Corn
close
Belt.
enough. Is there a magic date or a weekend or a
We've been
week
looking
for
at
that
20
surge?
to the 25th, somewhere in that last 5 to 10 days of the month of September. This
For a
month.
surge of cold.
Surge of cold. We already some of that is materializing, not to a degree of frost and freeze, but you'll see that materialize in the next 2 or 3 days. May not get out of 60s here in Champaign County, when we ought to be up around 80 this time of the year. So just advance that down the line here compared to climatological norms, and we have some concern in those northern and far eastern Corn Belt areas.
When does the rainy period really start, or has it already?
Mid to late next week it begins. Our first in the several systems that will come out of the western states into the plains, make that traditional southwest to northeast movement. And while the tropics have been active, especially the Pacific, and we've got named systems in the Atlantic, wind shear, the strong winds that blow off have been preventing any hurricane or tropical storm development. There are beginning to, some of the maps are suggesting some impulses, some energy pockets in the Gulf that will get caught up in this broad southwest or northeast upper wind flow, and we'll add Gulf moisture, tropical moisture, and these slow-moving systems, and there's our introduction to the wet weather pattern. There will be a benefit, of course, to the plains and some regions of the Corn Belt, but from a harvest standpoint, no, that is the vanguard, the start of a multi-week, probably multi-month, wetter, progressively stormier pattern.
How about a question from the audience?
Dr. Good, Professor Good, raised your spirits. We're here to just knock them right down again. I mean, it's just one of those years from a 30 years saying that this is a year that's going to be compared. I think Russell pointed out 2009. I think was a tough harvest season and year around here. Might kind of take on a little character like that, where we get deeper into the fall and early winter when you get those bigger, broader windows of opportunity.
Are there other forecasters agreeing with you on this?
Are there other forecasters out there? I did not know. Rumor has it there's a TV channel that does 24-hour weather. I never heard of it.
Eric?
If the fall's no good, what's next spring look like?
I would keep in mind that there's already some government folks tweeting that El Nino comes to a halt here in the next 2 or 3 months. It's not like throwing a light switch, okay? The atmosphere's got to catch up, if you will. And typically front end and back ends of La Ninas and El Ninos, you still have this range of unsettled, stormy, unhappy weather, put it that way. So when we're seeing it right now, that we probably go into a wet, balanced, wet, again, wet, the operative word, winter, early spring, and then begin to ease back as the atmosphere kind of normalizes, neutralizes way out there. You know, we're 6 to 8 months out, that we move into a spring pattern that should be okay, not bad, good, probably even trending a little drier than you'd like to maybe see or compare to normal, but coming off this multi-month spell of stormy weather, 4 to 6 months, that'll be good news.
How about another question?
What about snow?
What about snow, she said.
What's Orion ask? He always asks every winter or Christmas, is there going to be a white Christmas? And somewhere on the planet there will be.
There will be,
yeah, it'll snow. I think snow totals are going to be actually down. There may be some early season snows, but snow totals themselves here in Champaign County and, you know, Pencil and Kansas City, Springfield, Champaign, Indianapolis, heart of the Corn Belt, probably below average around here. But offset by the fact that we'll have more liquid precip events, maybe a little more ice involved. When you normally see that stuff south of here, we may be on those infamous rain snow lines. So the gauge itself will likely be higher than average, while the snow totals, I think, are going to be probably trending a little bit below average, a little bit below normal.
Well, that sent a chortle through the crowd talking about ice.
So hey, less snow this year.
Get your generator ready to go, huh? Any other questions about weather? Well, Greg will be around here for a little bit, too. You can
give me 1 minute lead time to get out the
Yeah,
door
get
before you
out
come
the door.
after me.
Thank you, sir, so much. Really appreciate it.